Across the Orion Arm, there existed a species that did not conquer, negotiate, or enslave. They hunted. For thousands of cycles, the predators had refined war into ritual. Worlds were not annexed, they were stalked. Civilizations were not defeated, they were tested, broken, and harvested. The stronger the prey, the greater the honor. Intelligence was not a deterrent. It was seasoning. Humanity drew their attention the moment our signals pierced the dark. At first, the predators observed. They intercepted our broadcasts, dissected our languages, studied footage of our wars. They saw divided nations, constant conflict, political fractures, and endless arguments. They saw a species that poisoned its own atmosphere and bled over imaginary lines. Their analysts classified Earth as volatile, technologically primitive, emotionally unstable. A fractured apex predator with no unity. Conclusion: high aggression, low cohesion. Ideal prey. The decision was unanimous. They did not announce themselves. There was no diplomatic vessel, no warning encoded in starlight. The first sign came as silence. Satellites blinked out in coordinated pulses. Global communications froze mid-sentence. Aircraft lost navigation. Naval fleets went dark. An electromagnetic wave rolled across continents with surgical precision, disabling grids without turning cities to ash. The predators preferred their prey conscious. Within 6 minutes, the modern world collapsed. Hospitals switched to emergency power. Financial markets dissolved into static. Military command structures tried to initiate contingency protocols, but encrypted networks were already compromised. Every major defense satellite had been mapped years earlier. The hunters had studied their terrain. Then the ships appeared. They slid from distortion above major population centers, matte black hulls absorbing sunlight. No grand displays of fire. No theatrical bombardment. Precision strikes targeted hardened military installations first: missile silos, airbases, naval ports. Hypersonic projectiles pierced reinforced bunkers before alarms finished sounding. Entire command staffs were erased in seconds. Panic spread faster than any weapon. Without central coordination, governments struggled to identify the attacker. Some believed it was rival nations. Others feared rogue artificial intelligence. Social media, flickering intermittently on backup systems, flooded with fragmented footage, towering figures descending from angular craft, armor reflecting burning city lights, weapons that emitted tight beams of contained starfire. The predators moved in disciplined silence. They did not shout. They did not gloat. They executed. Urban centers became containment zones. Hunters advanced methodically, isolating districts, severing escape routes, driving civilians into predictable corridors. They deployed aerial drones that mapped human movement in real time. They avoided unnecessary destruction. Dead prey was worthless. Fear was the objective. On their command vessel, high above Earth's curvature, warchiefs reviewed projections. Human military resistance would collapse within 72 hours. Civilian morale within 96. After that, the hunt would enter its ceremonial phase. Selected survivors would be tracked individually. It would be instructive. Efficient. Brief. On the ground, something unexpected occurred. In cities stripped of power and direction, humans did not freeze. They improvised. Emergency responders coordinated through analog radios pulled from storage. Soldiers cut off from command defaulted to local leadership instead of surrender. Civilians formed convoys without waiting for instruction. When official communication channels failed, handheld devices linked through ad hoc mesh networks. Information crawled instead of flowed, but it moved. The predators recorded this with mild curiosity. Resistance flared in scattered pockets. Not organized counterattacks. Those were impossible against such technology, but stubborn refusals to submit. Small units lured hunters into narrow streets. Construction crews collapsed structures to block armored advances. Firefighters repurposed chemical suppressants into blinding clouds. The losses were insignificant militarily, yet statistically anomalous. Prey species usually fragmented into chaos at this stage. Instead, Earth's population adapted to the absence of control. In a fortified chamber beneath what had once been a central military headquarters, a surviving human general studied grainy footage of the invaders. Their armor emitted distinct energy signatures. Their formations were rigid. Their movements suggested ritual discipline, not flexible tactics. He understood something the alien analysts had missed. Humans had been hunted before, by famine, by plague, by each other. Extinction events were written into our evolutionary memory. We did not require unity to survive. We required pressure. Above the planet, a predator warchief observed rising resistance metrics with irritation. He addressed his assembled captains with quiet certainty. This hunt will be brief. On Earth, surrounded by fractured maps and analog equipment, the general exhaled slowly and replied to no one in particular. They made one mistake. They think this is a hunt. And for the first time since the sky went dark, humanity stopped reacting and began watching back. From orbit, the predators began compiling their formal assessment of Earth's resistance. Their doctrine required analysis after initial suppression. Data streamed in from drones, armor feeds, atmospheric scanners. Human infrastructure lay in ruins. Central governments were fractured. Strategic weapons silenced. By every measurable standard, the invasion had succeeded. Yet the casualty reports told a different story. Hunter squads were disappearing. Not in open battle. Not in glorious last stands. They vanished in alleys, tunnels, forests, industrial ruins. Tracking implants returned static. Drones sent to retrieve them were ambushed or hacked. The predators recalculated and reached the same conclusion each time. Human coordination should not be possible under these conditions. They had misunderstood what coordination meant. Humans did not wait for orders. When satellites died, amateur radio operators resurfaced. When fiber networks collapsed, engineers revived dormant relay towers and improvised short-range signal webs using consumer hardware. University labs converted into signal hubs. Retired electricians restored fragments of local grids. The Internet, once centralized and fragile, splintered into thousands of independent islands that could not all be extinguished at once. Information moved slowly, but it moved with intent. Resistance cells formed organically. Veterans took charge of neighborhoods. Civilians with hunting experience guided urban fighters through sewer systems and abandoned metro lines. Firearms, though primitive against alien armor, were not abandoned. They were studied. Hunters who fell under collapsing structures had armor joints exposed. Energy shielding flickered under sustained electromagnetic disruption. Every encounter became a lesson. In one industrial district, a group of engineers captured damaged predator gauntlets from a fallen warrior. Instead of fearing the alien technology, they dismantled it on a factory floor lit by portable lamps. They mapped circuitry, identified power cores, traced frequency emissions. Within 48 hours, they discovered that localized EMP bursts destabilized armor shielding for fractions of a second. Not enough for conventional assault, but enough for something else. Explosives were recalibrated. Improvised devices were built not to destroy, but to interrupt. The next time a predator squad entered a confined corridor beneath a transit station, they encountered what their doctrine had not prepared them for. Motion sensors were spoofed with stray heat signatures. Walls were wired with staggered EMP charges. The first pulse disrupted targeting systems. The second blinded helmet optics. The third disabled shields entirely. In darkness filled with smoke and collapsing concrete, humans attacked at close range. The Predator commander died with a blade through an exposed joint in his armor. The footage was recovered by orbiting drones. It spread through Predator command channels as a statistical anomaly. Then it happened again. In forests, hunters found their thermal scanners flooded by controlled wildfires ignited upwind. In coastal regions, tides were weaponized to trap landing craft in shallow zones pre-mined with adapted explosives. Urban rooftops became sniper nests targeting visor lenses the moment shields flickered. Humans did not attempt frontal resistance. They forced the predators into environments where technology narrowed to the size of a corridor or the depth of a tunnel. The hunters began requesting reinforcements for operations previously deemed trivial. On Earth, resistance leaders understood something equally critical: fear was not exclusive to prey. Every predator helmet recorded engagements for ritual documentation. Humans intercepted fragments of these transmissions. Alien voices, disciplined but strained, discussing unexpected losses. Casualty numbers exceeding projections. Tactical uncertainty creeping into formal language. So humans amplified it. Captured audio was edited and rebroadcast across compromised alien frequencies. Predator death cries echoed back at them through their own comm systems. False distress signals lured elite squads into abandoned sectors rigged for collapse. Hunter insignias were hung publicly in reclaimed zones, visible to surveillance drones. The psychological shift was subtle but measurable. Predator strike teams began moving more cautiously. Engagement times lengthened. Some hunters hesitated before entering enclosed spaces. Their culture framed fear as dishonor, so it surfaced as aggression. Civilian zones once left intact were subjected to harsher measures. Brutality increased, not out of strategy, but frustration. In orbit, the High Council reviewed escalating loss ratios. Earth was no longer a ceremonial hunt. It was becoming a campaign. That possibility had not been entertained. A directive was issued: intensify suppression. Escalate force. Crush resistance before it matures. On the surface, human cells intercepted fragments of the order through partially decrypted channels. The message was simple enough. The predators were adjusting. A resistance coordinator, speaking through a network assembled from salvaged transmitters, responded calmly. Good. Let them get angry. Because anger narrowed perception. And humans had begun shaping the battlefield not with strength, but with adaptation. The war shifted the moment humans stopped thinking like survivors and started thinking like analysts. Every captured weapon, every fragment of armor, every intercepted transmission became part of a growing profile. The predators were not chaotic raiders. They were ritualists. Their formations were precise, their hierarchies rigid, their battlefield communication formal even under fire. Discipline was their strength, and their limitation. Human linguists and cryptographers worked around the clock on partial signal captures. Predator speech patterns repeated honorific structures before tactical commands. Loss reports carried ceremonial phrasing. Even in urgency, their culture bled through. Shame markers appeared in transmissions following failed hunts. Units with higher casualty rates requested reassignment less frequently than expected. Pride was distorting their strategic flexibility. That was exploitable. Instead of targeting random patrols, resistance cells began identifying elite hunting cadres through insignia markings and armor embellishments. These units were high status within predator society. Their failures would carry symbolic weight. Humans mapped their patrol routes and intentionally left false trails, heat signatures, staged supply caches, fabricated distress calls transmitted in partially decrypted alien code. When the elite squads pursued, they walked into layered traps designed not merely to kill, but to humiliate. Armor plating was scorched and left intact for drone retrieval. Insignias were removed and displayed publicly. In one operation, an entire Predator fire team was incapacitated and their helmets positioned facing each other in a circle, weapons stripped, ritual blades crossed mockingly at the center. The image was leaked across compromised alien channels. Internal Predator communication spiked with disciplinary language. Meanwhile, human coordination matured without central command. Cells shared tactical discoveries through encrypted fragments passed node to node. No single hub existed to decapitate. If one region fell silent, others adapted independently. Patterns emerged organically: avoid open ground, force close quarters, exploit shield recharge intervals, disrupt optics before engagement. Humans were evolving mid-conflict. The predators responded by tightening formation protocols. They reduced squad autonomy, pairing inexperienced hunters with veterans. It slowed their operations. Precision hunts became cautious sweeps. Every delay bought humanity time. Then came the breakthrough. A resistance group ambushed a supply convoy in a mountainous region where atmospheric interference limited orbital overwatch. Instead of destroying the cargo outright, they secured it. Among the crates were portable energy cores and navigational components. Embedded within the convoy's command vehicle was a semi-autonomous tactical unit containing star maps and fleet logistics data. The capture was unprecedented. Human engineers isolated the device in a shielded underground facility and began extraction. The interface was alien, but mathematics was not. Coordinates repeated in consistent intervals. Supply chains traced back to orbital depots positioned beyond Earth's visible spectrum. The Predators were operating from fixed staging points. For the first time, humanity had a target above the sky. The information circulated cautiously among resistance leaders. Striking orbit seemed impossible weeks earlier. Now it was improbable, but conceivable. Captured energy cores were reverse-engineered into unstable propulsion boosters. Missile guidance systems were retrofitted using scavenged Predator navigational algorithms. It would not be elegant. It would not be precise. It would be disruptive. The launch was conducted from a coastal platform previously written off as destroyed. Under cover of a manufactured electromagnetic storm generated by modified ground arrays, 3 improvised projectiles breached atmosphere. Predator orbital defenses intercepted one. A second veered off course. The third penetrated the outer hull of a logistics carrier before detonating its destabilized core. The explosion was not massive by galactic standards, but it was visible from Earth. Fragments of alien alloy burned across the upper atmosphere like falling stars. Predator fleet channels erupted with emergency traffic. For the first time since the invasion began, a human strike had reached beyond the planet's surface. On intercepted frequencies, a Predator commander demanded clarification. How has Prey achieved orbital parity? There was no answer that fit their doctrine. Within hours, a message transmitted from Earth across multiple hijacked channels, translated into Predator script with deliberate precision. You are not hunters here. The phrase spread through both species differently. Among humans it was proof. Among Predators, it was contamination, an idea that Prey could contest territory beyond survival. On the command vessel, the High Commander authorized a contingency rarely invoked. Extermination protocol. Abandon ritual constraints. Overwhelm the planet with decisive force before adaptation outpaces dominance. On Earth, scientists reviewing the escalation intercept reached a quiet conclusion. If the Predators escalated, they would commit more resources. More ships. More supply lines. More exposure. One of them leaned back from the terminal and spoke with measured certainty. We were hoping they'd say that. Because the hunt had already transformed. And humanity had begun setting the terms. Extermination protocol arrived as overwhelming force. Predator fleets repositioned into tighter formation, orbital weapons aligning for sustained bombardment. Ritual constraints were suspended. Civilian zones previously preserved for ceremonial hunts were reclassified as acceptable targets. The intention was simple: crush resistance through saturation before it matured further. Humanity anticipated escalation. Long before the first heavy plasma strike reached atmosphere, ground-based observatories detected fleet realignment patterns. Intercepted transmissions confirmed increased logistical movement between orbital depots. The Predators believed volume would end the conflict. They failed to understand that scale created vulnerability. Across the planet, dormant facilities reactivated simultaneously. Factories once dedicated to civilian production now assembled autonomous drones using scavenged alien alloys. University research departments merged with military engineers to finalize modifications to captured energy cores. Hackers embedded malicious code into partially decrypted Predator communication protocols, designed not to seize control outright, but to inject hesitation, milliseconds of delay inside targeting systems. When the orbital barrage began, it struck empty zones. Major cities had already dispersed populations through decentralized evacuation corridors established weeks earlier. Urban centers served as decoys, filled with heat generators mimicking human presence. Predator strikes vaporized infrastructure, but Resistance leadership had migrated into distributed subterranean networks reinforced against seismic shock. The Hunters escalated ground deployment, flooding key regions with armored divisions. This time they advanced in greater numbers, abandoning surgical precision for intimidation. Columns of towering figures moved through fractured streets, supported by aerial craft scanning relentlessly for Resistance signatures. Humans let them advance. In a coordinated operation spanning multiple continents, Resistance cells activated signal mimicry devices derived from captured armor frequencies. Entire districts began broadcasting false predator identification codes. To alien scanners, friendly signatures overlapped and multiplied unpredictably. Target recognition faltered. Hunter squads hesitated as automated systems struggled to differentiate ally from adversary. Simultaneously, hijacked communication nodes injected falsified distress calls into command channels, reporting ambushes in sectors that were, in reality, secure. Reinforcement orders collided with contradictory retreat directives. For the first time, predator formations fractured not from external force, but internal confusion. Then the counteroffensive reached orbit. Using propulsion systems reverse-engineered from salvaged energy cores, a small fleet of retrofitted launch vehicles ascended under electromagnetic concealment fields. They carried no conventional warheads. Instead, each payload contained destabilized cores programmed to overload upon proximity to identified supply nodes. Human targeting algorithms, refined through weeks of observation, calculated optimal interception vectors. The first detonation tore through a fuel transfer hub linking two major Predator cruisers. Chain reactions cascaded along exposed conduits. Secondary explosions crippled maneuvering thrusters. One cruiser lost structural integrity and drifted into its companion, both vessels spiraling off alignment. Orbital superiority fractured. On the ground, Resistance forces exploited the disruption. With fleet coordination compromised, Predator air support thinned. Human teams initiated boarding operations against isolated dropships forced into emergency landings. Confined corridors neutralized technological advantage. Hunters accustomed to open field dominance found themselves stalked in reverse. Motion sensors overloaded by signal jammers, optics disrupted by directed light pulses. Close quarters engagements favored unpredictability over doctrine. Reports flooded Predator command structures describing human units moving without fear, adapting tactics within minutes of encountering new resistance. Armor once impervious now bore scars from precision strikes at recharge intervals calculated to the millisecond. Captured weapons were turned immediately against former owners. Among the Predator ranks, a realization spread unspoken yet undeniable: their prey was learning faster than they could adjust. Attempts to re-establish rigid hierarchy failed as localized commanders exercised unauthorized discretion to survive. Pride, once the foundation of their culture, fractured into accusation. Some blamed inadequate intelligence. Others accused rivals of dishonorable conduct. Strategic coherence deteriorated. Humans pressed the advantage without overextension. They avoided pitched battles, choosing instead to dismantle supply arteries and isolate heavy units. Drone swarms harassed exposed armor joints. Snipers targeted sensor arrays the moment shields flickered. Every engagement eroded Predator confidence. Intercepted internal dialogue captured a chilling admission from a senior hunter. They are evolving during the hunt. On Earth, Resistance leadership consolidated gains cautiously. Victory was not yet secured, but momentum had shifted irreversibly. The hunters who had arrived believing themselves apex now moved with calculation edged by doubt. A human commander, observing burning fragments of disabled cruisers streaking across the night sky, issued a quiet transmission across all Resistance channels. They wanted a hunt. Now we're the apex species. The war had ceased being a test of endurance. It had become a demonstration of adaptability. And humanity was accelerating. The final phase began not with desperation, but precision. Predator fleets, reduced and disorganized, attempted to consolidate beyond lunar orbit. Damaged cruisers clustered around their command vessel, shields overlapping in a defensive lattice. Extermination protocol had failed to break Earth. Now survival, not dominance, guided their strategy. Humanity recognized retreat patterns immediately. Weeks of intercepted telemetry had revealed the Central Command ship's signature, distinct energy harmonics linked to fleet coordination. Without it, Predator formations lost synchronization. Resistance leadership approved a unified operation. Every remaining orbital-capable platform, every retrofitted propulsion core, every captured guidance algorithm would converge on a single objective. The launch window lasted 11 minutes. From scattered positions across the planet, improvised vessels ascended in staggered waves, masking trajectories through residual electromagnetic distortion left by prior orbital detonations. Predator defensive grids activated, but internal signal contamination still lingered in their targeting architecture. Micro-delays compounded. Interceptor volleys misaligned by fractions of degrees, enough for several human craft to breach perimeter range. Boarding pods detached mid-flight. They impacted along the command ship's outer hull, magnetic anchors locking against alien alloy. Explosive charges punched entry corridors through layered plating. Inside, gravity fluctuated as localized systems destabilized. Human strike teams advanced through narrow passages illuminated by failing emergency lights. The environment favored neither species, it rewarded speed of adaptation. Predator guards met them with disciplined resistance. Energy blades clashed against ballistic impacts at distances measured in meters. Humans exploited shield recharge intervals calculated through weeks of data collection. Flash pulses overloaded visor optics. Sonic disruptors, tuned experimentally against alien auditory frequencies, shattered coordination. Every encounter was brutal and efficient. At the core chamber, the Predator High Commander awaited. Armor intact, ceremonial markings etched across his plating, he radiated authority even as systems around him flickered. He demanded surrender in translated human speech, voice amplified through damaged conduits. You have proven formidable. Submit, and your extinction will be swift. The response came without hesitation. You hunted children. Combat lasted seconds. Coordinated strikes targeted exposed energy conduits along his armor spine. When shields faltered, a kinetic round pierced the central node. The High Commander fell not as a martyr, but as a casualty of miscalculation. Simultaneously, sabotage teams reached the command ship's control nexus. Rather than trigger catastrophic detonation, they uploaded a transmission package compiled meticulously over the course of the war, combat recordings, evidence of Predator defeats, data proving vulnerability. The broadcast was routed through the command vessel's high-range array and transmitted across multiple galactic channels before automated failsafes could block it. The galaxy witnessed the hunters bleed. With their leader dead and fleet coordination severed, Predator vessels fractured into isolated units. Some attempted hyperspace withdrawal. Others powered down weapons entirely. A few fired blindly before being disabled by precise strikes from human platforms now maneuvering confidently in contested orbit. Humanity did not pursue annihilation. Instead, Resistance Command issued a calculated directive. Disabled Predator ships were stripped of advanced weapon systems and propulsion cores. Surviving hunters were transmitted a singular message, translated clearly. Leave. Carry the truth of this defeat. Across interstellar networks, the broadcast echoed. Other species, long subjugated through ritualized terror, observed the collapse of an empire once considered invincible. Predator honor culture, built upon flawless hunts, imploded under undeniable proof of failure. Internal conflict ignited among distant clans as accusations replaced certainty. On Earth, fires still smoldered. Cities lay scarred. Infrastructure would take years to rebuild. Yet the sky was clear. Fragments of alien vessels burned harmlessly in atmosphere as the last operational Predator cruisers initiated retreat vectors. No pursuit followed. Humanity had made its point. A final transmission departed Earth's orbit, simple and unembellished. We do not fear the dark. The war had begun as a hunt. It ended as a lesson written across the stars. Humanity had not triumphed through superior technology, or overwhelming numbers. It prevailed through adaptation, resilience, and refusal to accept the role assigned by a distant empire. The predators had sought worthy prey. They found a species that learns. And the galaxy would never again mistake humanity for anything less than apex.